celebrating the power of possibility.
I'm Jon Rysewyk, and I believe that anything is possible.
This is Anything is Possible. My guest is Dr. Jon Rysewyk. Doc, you know this show is called Anything is Possible, and your story is a story of possibility. The word possible means able to be. When I met you, and I'm trying to think when I met you, it had to be over 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. You weren't the superintendent of Knox County Schools.
No.
Where does your story start?
A lot of it is kind of around education. I mean,
You born and raised here?
I'm actually an Army brat, so we moved quite a bit, and I think that's part of kind of what made me. So I growing up, the longest we lived anywhere was kind of 5 years, and so you had to continue to be part of breaking into a community and meeting new friends, meeting new people, getting different perspectives, all the way from Washington D.C. I lived there for a while, and my father was in the Army, and all the way to smaller towns along the way. So. Sports were a big part of my journey and a big part of my way I connected with people.
What sports did you play?
I was a basketball guy, and loved that. And then
wait a minute. Let me stop for just a moment.
Sure.
I am trained to hone in on details.
Okay.
Although these many years of doing this,
yeah.
And when you said I'm a basketball guy,
yeah.
You said it with a glint of swagger in your eye.
Yeah, probably more swagger a few years ago. But
where'd you play? And
so
were you pretty good?
I was okay. I was kind of an all-district guy. Small college, junior college offer kind of thing, so probably part of my story on that too. So actually, my father ended up being a recruiter in Knoxville for the Army, and so we actually landed in Tazewell, which is a small in Claiborne County, where I went to high school. So that was kind of my journey there, which was another great experience. Very rural, having lived in places like D.C. and places like that, to live there. A lot of really good people there. Really enjoyed that. So my 4 years were there. Had offers to schools like LMU, Walter State, some of those. Also was decent academically, and so it took the academic scholarship. Probably good for those teams long term as well. But it was.
How tall are you?
6'6". Yeah. So could mix it up in the post. Probably too small to do that now, and would probably have to be a point forward now or something. So it would be it's a different game than it was.
Do you still hoop?
Not as much. We had a group that did a lot of that, and probably about 6 years ago, I kind of converted over to do more CrossFit and less basketball. So it was good for me.
How does a guy like you've bounced around as an Army kid, you're in Tazewell going to high school, you get academic scholarships. How do you find your way to education?
It's an interesting journey. I mean, athletics were a big part of my life, and so kind of interesting story. My senior year, my parents divorced, again, family's kind of from all over the place. My father was from New York, moved back to New York, and pretty instantly. And my mom moved as well. So I have two brothers, great guys. My older brother was still there, so we kind of just were on our own, kind of at 18, kind of doing our thing. And for me, that was a time to get a job, get in school. School was always important in my life and my family. So, kind of at 18 is I started working about 30 hours a week and going to school full time too, and really kind of working through that, playing a lot of ball on the side. That was kind of my out. A lot of intramural stuff, a lot of rec stuff, doing those kinds of things, and so that was a big part. So coaches had been influential in my life. They had been, men who had spoken into me about being a man and what that meant, and that continued on in some of my journey. So my first kind of inkling to go into education was really I wanted to be a basketball coach, so kind of started down that road at UT after I finished my first degree and entered their master's program. Was originally kind of everybody else who's decent in grades, you're either going to be an attorney or a physician, right, coming out of high school. So pediatrics is what I kind of wanted. I think that was kind of God's first hint to me that I was going to do things with kids, and really had a heart for wanting to do that. So that's what really brought me there. I kind of thought, well, I want to go be a coach, and I'll learn to teach to do that and get my degree to do that. So So that's kind of where that started.
What is the name Rysewyk?
It's a name with very few vowels. No. So it's Dutch, and so my grandfather on my dad's side was his brothers and sisters were actually born in Holland, and he was the first of his family born in the United States. My grandfather. So yeah, we're not many generations removed.
So you go to the University of Tennessee. You get your first degree. You think, I'm going to be a basketball coach. What happened next?
So interesting journey, and I think again, I'll say this: my faith's a big part of my life, and so you look back and see how God weaves things through all these experiences that you don't understand in the moment. So for me, I ended up interning at Bearden High School, an incredible group of veteran teachers who just let me, as a young teacher, be innovative. They taught me the right things, but they gave me a lot of space. They stayed after school with me. I had all these I was a biology teacher, had crazy ideas on. I remember asking the custodian, can I borrow the ladder? We would do like electron transport chain. We'd have a tennis ball and the kids would all act out how the electron moved. And we built all these kinds of models and we did all these competitions for water filters and tested. So, you had these veteran teachers that just encouraged me in that internship year to try all that and give it a shot, and it still kept me grounded in teaching practice. And I fell in love with it. I don't think I expected to fall in love with the teaching side of that. But they really taught me that, man, you can make a difference. My love back for kids was a big part of that, and that's kind of went from there. So my first tough experience with that, I was offered a job at Bearden, and then was called a few weeks later with the budget impact of losing the position they thought they were going to have. So the way it works at the university, your master's year, you kind of work for free. My wife married me during that time and understood we weren't going to make any money. And then I have this job that I don't have pretty quick. And so we were kind of in the situation. But I will tell you this, that process taught me that the importance and the impact that a budget has. And when you make cuts, there are people on the other side. That was a big lesson that I probably wasn't aware enough to learn it in that point, but it helps me in this position now to think through those things.
Possibility powered by Pilot Flying J, Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel.
So you make it to being a teacher. Did you coach as well?
Yeah, so when I left, kind of the summer of that year when I realized I didn't have a job, I had a friend from church who had said, there's this, I'm a physics teacher in a place called Oliver Springs. I had no idea where Oliver Springs was, and said, we need a biology teacher. Would you come out? So I had another experience from working in suburban Bearden to moving to not moving, we stayed in Knoxville, but moving my heart and my time into Oliver Springs, where I became a biology teacher there, spent 2 years there, was an assistant basketball coach there, and just had a great time going to places, like Oneida and places like that I just wasn't very familiar with, but saw a lot of pride in community, saw a lot of, Friday nights meant a lot, and basketball games meant a lot, and everybody wanted what was best for their kids. So it was really neat to even see that in a more rural environment too, that there's not that much difference in what suburban families want and what families in a rural community want.
Oliver Springs is a long way from being superintendent of Knox County Schools. So how did we get
to there?
I remember you being principal at Fulton High
Uh-huh.
School. I remember you at Emerald Academy. I remember you came back. And I remember the whole search process around finding a superintendent. Is this what you imagined? Is this what you wanted? Is this what you saw as possible? Because I guess as you're going along, one person said, go as far as you can see, and when you get there, you'll see further. Is this that?
It is, very much so. I never, I never sat there and said, well, it was never a goal on my goal sheet or whatever, my kind of life philosophy on that is, know who you are, be who you are in every situation, and understand God's got the rest.
Oops,
right?
We got to pause right there. This is good stuff right here. Know who you are, be who you are, and God's got the rest. Do you know who you are?
I think so, yeah. I feel pretty good.
Who is Jon? When you say know who you are.
Yeah, no, it's, I've said before, my faith is important to me. And I think integrity is really important to me. I think I've seen a lot in life, people be a certain something or say they're a certain something, and then hard times come, and then challenges come, and politics come, right? And I've always wanted to be somebody who knows and thinks carefully about what I'm intentional about, and what I believe. And then I really don't worry about the fallout for titles, positions, longevity, because and I think you mentioned some of the things in my career. I think that reflects that as well. There's some decisions in my career that you look at and go, well, why would you? I had people ask me that, like, that doesn't make sense. And does that feel like a step back or a step sideways? And it's never been about that for me. It's never been like reaching for the ring, right? I think I've always wanted to be a guy who believes in, again, my Christian values. I mean, believes in integrity, believes in loving people well, believes in speaking truth, believes in caring for others, helping people who maybe have some disadvantages that you don't. I mean, I'm a big guy. I've been blessed with that. I mean, talk about my 2 daughters and my wife, and they talk about how they have to carry their pocketbook and not go dark alleys. I'm truly a 6'6" large white man who's never felt that level of intimidation anywhere I've been. So with that comes, well, why? Why did God give that to me? And what can I do with that leadership, that strength, that experience to help others? And that's really at my core what's driven me in all of these situations to go, I've been blessed. How do I bless others with it? And not be afraid to walk into tough places, and not be afraid to walk into challenges, and bring that clarity to those places.
What breeds the confidence? What in your life eliminates the fear so that you can walk in difficult circumstances?
So I think the awareness of how small I am. Sounds weird. I'm a thunderstorm guy. I like to sit on the porch and watch thunderstorms, and it's not for the cool breeze, and it's not for getting the dampness in my face. I see the power of that, and I realize how small I am. And I like that. There's peace in that. There's peace in understanding that anything you do is because there is a higher calling asking you to do it. And then it's not up to me. All I'm supposed to do is bring my best self and myself prepared to it, and then walk through the door as it happens. And I find my peace in feeling small. So
I'm assuming when you say your faith is important to you, the assumption is you're a Christian, right? So now let's talk about CrossFit.
Yeah, there you go.
You're a fitness guy. I want to get to the schools too, but what's this deal with you and CrossFit? And you were telling me, you need to come out. I'm not coming to CrossFit. I'm not doing what you guys and gals do. There's no way.
Yeah. I mean, for me, there's a couple things. One, my wife manages our gym. She's a very competitive lady who's done really well for a long time, and I think being an athlete and having those kinds of things, I mean, you can only be as sharp and prepared for these journeys and these challenges as you are fit. And I think that's mental fitness, that's physical fitness, all those kinds of things that you just feel better and you feel ready for the challenge. So I think it's taken on different forms. At one point, I ran a couple of half marathons back in the day and did some different things, and I think you continue to progress through that. My wife took up CrossFit, and then my 2 daughters took up CrossFit. Obviously, my schedule had gotten busier, and so I could either wake up early and run and miss them, or I could find a way that could become family time. So it is interesting. We meet at the gym, and one daughter's now at UT, and one's a junior in high school, and my wife's there managing it. So to have that opportunity for us to share that common experience, that common friend group, all those kinds of very much a community-centered folks who hold you accountable and who kind of walk through life with you. So it's kind of funny. It really turns into a nice culture.
So now you're superintendent of Knox County Schools. Were you shocked that you were selected?
I'm grateful. I'm very grateful that I was. Again, the interview process, was, as you mentioned too, was grueling, as it should be. It's a job with a lot of responsibility. But again, you build your confidence off all those experiences that lead you up to that. And having been everything from an intern to an assistant principal, to a teacher, to an assistant principal, to a principal who was blessed in a turnaround situation in one of our schools, to start Emerald Charter School with a bunch of people who have a heart for kids in the inner city. I think all those experiences just build on. Every experience felt like something that I had been prepared for, just maybe on a larger scale. So I think that gave me confidence in the process, and also knowing that if it didn't work out, there was something else. But I really wanted this. I said that in the interview process, that I didn't apply for other superintendents. I've been asked by other towns to apply, and you know, Knoxville's home. It's important to me, having been a Army brat, that we wanted, my wife and I both, a place that we were going to raise our kids and have our grandkids and do that. So giving to this community meant a lot to me.
The premise of the work that you do is maximizing the possibility you see in these young people. Take a minute and cast your vision for Knox County Schools and the possibility that you see in the students of this community.
For me, kind of my philosophy on any organization, I think this travels whether you're a school system or not, is you have to know what you're uniquely positioned to do in a community that no one else can do. And then you build your whole strategy around that. And so for us as a school system, you know, we're coming off, like everyone else, kind of in the world, all this time of uncertainty and redefining over the last 3 to 4 years of things that the pandemic shook up. And I felt very strongly that we had to figure out what is a school system in any community uniquely positioned to do. That if we don't do this, no one else does. And that's where we need to double down and plant our roots. And everywhere else we need to extend our hands and say, we're part of the community, we're not the community. And I think that's kind of been our approach for the last 10 months. And those things for us are excellence and foundational skills. If we're not great at third grade reading, then it's a game changer for kids, because after third grade, that's when they read to learn. And any kid who can at that point is now following exponentially behind every year. Another one of ours is the marker, and that is really around Algebra 1. And people are kind of like, well, why Algebra 1? When you work with the chamber and you work with the mayor's office and you see the future workforce for Knoxville and Knox County, 5 of the top 10 jobs are STEM jobs. If you can't do Algebra 1, your STEM career is over your freshman year of high school. So if we're going to really prepare, and understanding that, and we've talked as a staff about that, our real job is to prepare the next workforce for Knox County. And I know people, well, education is so much more than that. It is so much more than that. But at the core, if we're not doing that, the fire department's not doing that, right? The churches aren't doing that. Like, that is our sole job that we need to be able to do. So that's extremely important to us. Can't do that without great educators. Great educators mean teachers who know what they're doing, teachers who understand the right strategies, teachers who care and relate to kids. And teachers can only be as effective as that leader sitting in the seat at that school. They have to understand what we're about as an organization, and they have to be the boots on the ground who are keeping their eye on the right balls, because they're going to get distracted by social media, they're going to get distracted by a parent call, they're going to get distracted by a news article, and they have to continue to bring their teaching force back to, I got you everywhere else, here's your job, do your job, and we'll support you in doing your job. So great educators in every building, that's the leaders and the teachers. We get into career empowerment and preparation. We've seen lots of initiatives launched locally about redesigning high schools, taking that serious look at us into things like the 865 academies. How do we bring business into schools as opposed to just having them write checks to help fund things? How do we bring them in and ask for their time and talent? How do they understand their role in developing the next generation and getting them exposed? Have an interesting story. Randy Boyd and I were meeting with a group of iron workers a couple months ago, and you know, we hear huge issues in the trades. You know, trades, there's a bunch of retirees. We don't have people to fill that. Well, one of the conversations we had was this person, well, give us any of your seniors who aren't going anywhere. And I said, that's the wrong message. You know, there's not a parent in Knox County that wants to hear my kid had no other options. Right. And I asked him, why did you go into become an iron worker? And he said, well, I've always been a creative guy. And I said, that's great. I've always wanted to be my own entrepreneur. Run my own business. I said, great. I said, that's the message you need to take to our 8th graders. Like, that's where you sell. If you want to build the future of your profession, that's where it happens. So those conversations, and it's a very different posture with the business community in Knoxville, and we're aware of that, which means we've got to be vulnerable, and we've got to understand there could be mistakes in that process. But I've had a great reception from businesses for that. And then the last one is really just success for every student. Every kid doesn't start in the same place. We know that. Economics plays a big piece of that. Exposure plays a big piece of that. And so it's our job to make sure Knox County is diverse. We have an urban core, we have a suburban outskirt, and we have rural outskirts. Those are 3 very different value systems. We're probably the largest small town in Tennessee, and most of the other larger cities of our size have urbanized almost entirely. We haven't done that in Knoxville, and that's a unique challenge, but also was something that makes us special.
You know, I think your life is an example of possibility. You bounced around Army, your parents divorced, you had to kind of bring yourself along, you had to work your way through. But you seem delighted to be the superintendent. You seem like you love what you do. Why do you love what you do?
I think we're making a difference. I like to think that. I mean, the school system can be a big machine. And our philosophy has always been, how do we make big small? How do we make it personal? How do we make it relatable? How do we make it matter for everybody? Everyone has a school experience. I mean, that's the thing. Everyone went to school. And it could be a bad experience, a good experience. It's that one teacher we all have that made a difference in our life. And man, I can't think of another place in society where you have that chance for that kind of global impact.
To make a difference.
And so, you know, we don't take that for granted. And we take every day as, how do we understand that our customer, the student, our customer, the future fill-in-the-blank career for the future of Knoxville? That matters. And how do we keep that focus every day?
I think I love who you are and what you do, because our children are the future. And I know that's very cliche, but also when they realize their potential, we realize the possibility of that potential. And you're helping us prove through the lives of all these students that anything is possible, except me doing pull-ups in a CrossFit gym with you.
We can get you there.
Dr. Jon Rysewyk, thanks for being on the broadcast.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.